Hello everyone, Tome18 with another tank tutorial video. More or less update, revamp, and addition to the previous tank tutorial video. If you like this content, please like and subscribe, as I'll be putting out more squad tutorials and videos a tad bit more regularly now. So, quick note before we get too far into the video and we're still on the B-roll. The tactics and tips and different things that you'll see me talk about are things that I have actually put into practice, I've actually used, and I found them to be effective. I try to avoid adding anything into my tips, tricks, or tutorial videos that I don't find actually work, just in the interest of actually helping new players instead of trying to get them to do gimmicky ideals or things that may work in real life but don't actually work in squad, and just to make sure that all my information can be used readily on the battlefield. It may be a little bit more complicated sometimes, it may be a little bit more simpler, but everything that I talk about I feel is actually of use in squad public matches. As for squad competitive scene where armor is concerned, I have nothing to do with the competitive scene. The last thing I had to do with it was CCFN way back in the day. So as to the competitive scene and my tactics, I don't know. Maybe. With that out of the way, let's get to the first lesson of the video, which is the importance of the different crew members. Now, I'm assuming that everyone's going to think that it's going to go commander, gunner, then driver. However, it's been in my experience that if you're going to run a three-man crew, that yes, the commander is going to be the most senior, but it's actually going to be the driver that's second most senior. Driving is actually almost the most important part of running around with a tank, let alone any vehicle. And then the most junior would be the gunner. However, that's not to say that it's always the case. And while I would typically advise against it, unless you have someone like my friend War Turner, who you've worked really closely with, and you can almost read each other's minds, I wouldn't run a two-man tank. But if you do have such a person, in my opinion, it should be the driver, that is commander and driver. And the gunner should just be focused on literally keeping his eyes open all the time for threats, because you're not going to have the commander up top all the time. That's also an extra set of eyes that can look 360 degrees. And then your playstyle is going to be a little bit more different. You can still be aggressive and push and fire on the move, but you're going to be a little bit more ambush predator about it. You're going to be trying to like flank around and find a good place to hold up and sit with great sight lines, where the commander of the vehicle, who's doubling as a driver, can then switch into the commander's seat and help spot and identify targets. So now that I've talked about the basics of the different crews' responsibilities, I wanted to showcase an actual gameplay segment.
Base our main armor to the west.
Hear me tell the driver that after we get up here to the indicated mark, to face main armor to the west.
Dead west.
I'm giving him a little bit of a correction.
We're sitting on a nice mound. Keep going. I'll tell you when to... Get ready. Stop here.
Eyes on Abrams on the overpass.
Okay.
Gunner identifies Abrams.
Yeah.
Driver's just making sure that he can actually fire accurately. I'm in the process of marking the Abrams on the map.
He's gonna go forward. Nope, he's gonna try to reverse it. Don't know.
The gunner just continues to engage.
Good hit. I think you might have hit the engine.
That's what I was going for.
Just put it right in the fucking side.
And that's pretty much all she wrote for this Abrams. Mobility disabled, struck in the side multiple times, and it never even saw where it came from. Now in this next clip, I'm going to try to demonstrate what it would look like if you got into combat in a two-man tank crew. Sierra Verica, different round start. So the round starts, we're going down the highway and we start to engage this Abrams that you see now from Turner's gun view. You end up throwing a couple of rounds at one another, but I keep moving. I don't know where the other Abrams is. I don't know what else is going on. So I just want to disengage. I wasn't quite prepared for that bump engagement. So fast forwarding a little bit, we pull up and around onto a different mound. And the other tank, I told where the Abrams was. He begins to engage him. I pulled up, switched out of the driver's seat, hopped into the commander's seat, helped Turner identify him. The other tank was able to kill him. Now you'll see a little bit of a double vision viewpoint of ours. I'm scanning. We're looking for other stuff. I suspect that the other Abrams is around, or Bradley or something. And eventually, I come across this Bradley. Find it, slew Turner to it. And I get into the process of marking it. Turner's working on his range. I'm working on trying to roughly figure out where it is. And as for what you're probably thinking right now, oh god, there are a bunch of hackers. I don't see anything loading in. I assure you that we both have our view distance up to Epic. Sierra Verica has some awkward spots where if you get onto the edge of the map, a lot of the foliage and or buildings don't load in. We weren't trying to break shit. We just ended up here and ended up kind of breaking it. We end up engaging this Bradley. And my job is more or less to just give corrections, and he begins to engage it. Scan for other targets. I see the MRAP roll into view. Turner's working on finishing off this Bradley, and we end up finishing off both this Bradley and then the MRAP.
See that MRAP?
Yep, I see.
So now that I've briefly touched on what the responsibilities and what's expected for the gunner and the commander, I want to talk about what's expected of the driver a little bit more. And I've got a clip of me driving. Primarily, the driver in a three-man crew is obviously going to be following the direction of the commander. His job is a lot more just practical, making sure that you're not getting caught on objects, and kind of keeping a momentum game going on, specifically Sierra Verica with its rolling hills, keeping momentum going, being able to hop up and across hills, not getting caught on trees. This is also important on Gordak, as Gordak is very wooded. And then on Talil, the driver's job is going to be a lot of looking for hold down positions, things of that nature. And sometimes in a three-man tank crew, when you're stopped in a good hold down position for a while, the driver may find himself dismounted and helping look with the binos, serving as an extra set of eyes to find things for the gunner and for the commander. And this is why drivers are important. When it really gets down to the end, the commander may want the driver to go somewhere, but the driver is what gets everyone into trouble. The gunner can shoot, the commander can issue orders. When it really comes down to it, it's the driver that gets the tank into trouble, or keeps it out of trouble. Now you can see here I've gotten myself into some trouble. I got into a point-blank knife fight with the Abrams, and fortunately we come out on top, but I got us into a lot of trouble here. Ends up kind of jockeying into next little tidbit, which is it's very useful to have forward repair stations. You can see on the map that there's a fob up ahead of us, and I suggest in the beginning of matches getting a hold of whoever's running the Logi or Logi squad and just asking them to put up a forward respawn, or not respawn, but a forward repair outside of main. Otherwise, it's going to be hell to try to limp your way all the way back. And you're going to see here in a moment a little dirty trick that you can pull too, if you can't dismount to get the engine up to half working order, or even when it is in half working order, you can have the gunner shoot behind you, assuming that you have the rounds and you're willing to make the noise to do so, to give you little extra pushes over rough terrain features. It may not be a lot, but maybe that little extra push to get you over a knoll or something. And thankfully here we were able to meet up with Squad 6 and get a repair station up and get our vehicle up and running. Forward repair points for tanks are absolute lifesaver. And here this is just a clip where I'm amazed that I didn't hit any trees myself, but this just depicts what it's like, what you would want in a driver, someone that could actually do this all the time. I kind of just luck out and I make it in between all these trees, but a driver that can get you from point A to point B without losing momentum constantly, that's the kind of quality that you want in a driver. And not only to be good at the actual physical portion of driving, but to have a good map knowledge and almost more or less know where the commander wants to go before you can order him there. Not to say that he's a mind reader all the time, but based on the terrain features that he's given on the destination he's going to pick out a good spot. Moving on from 3-man, 2-man tank crews and the importance of the various seats in the tanks, I want to talk about opening map strategy. Excuse me. Fucking opium map strategy. Anyways, what I like to do is primarily focus on knocking out enemy armor first. That's going to be your first most concern. You can knock out the enemy's armor, it's 20 minutes for a tank respawn, and you can have, you know, at max 20 minutes to run around pretty much enemy armor free, which is going to be your hard counter. You know, your lesser counters are going to be TOE TGMs, whether they're on a Bradley or stationary or hat kits, but they're not nearly as big of a threat to you as enemy armor. So in the beginning of the match, you're looking for the enemy armor and you're looking to knock it out. And I like to run the edge of the map because then you only need to look in one direction. On maps like Euroverica and Gordok, you can kind of get up and behind the enemy lines and wait for them to push towards the center expected front line. Let them start the engagement, or you'll see them roll up like we do this Bradley, and you'll notice I cut my engine. We don't want him to hear us, and you can proceed to wipe up enemy tanks from the rear and let them get identified. You don't ever want to be identified first, unless you absolutely have to. If there's a Bradley IV or another main battle tank has already made itself known. Other than that, in the beginning of the match, you just want to stay nice and quiet. And if you do engage something, like we engage this Bradley, make sure that you reposition shortly thereafter. Nope. Eyes on Bradley. Moving through the location. Now, as you may have also noticed in this little clip here, that we cut our engine. We also find that cutting our engine regularly when you get close to other vehicles helps a lot in ID. A lot of squad is actually IDing by audio. So in tank-on-tank combat, when both the engines are on, unless the opponent players and the other tank or IFB are very vigilant and they have, you know, a good audio setup like me and Turner do, then cutting your engine is going to be hugely advantageous when you can't see them. You saw me do it there with the Bradley, and in this clip I'll be doing it again. You'll see that when we get up over this hill, we see the enemy Abrams, and we begin to engage it, and then we just sit nice and quiet for a little bit, just cutting out the engine and proceeding with the opening round strategy of just knocking out as much enemy armor as possible. And speaking of that opening map strategy of trying to knock out as much enemy armor as possible, or primarily focusing on it in the beginning, the reason being that, say you were to go to the middle of the map, you were trying to support your infantry and, you know, just be as much support as possible to everyone else. The issue there is that you get identified by the enemy's infantry, they mark you on the map, and then the enemy armor knows exactly where you are. You have no clue where it is, and it's the biggest threat on the battlefield to you. And you just give them the opportunity to pick you off from wherever they want. They can come in behind you, they can get to your sides, and it's just a matter of you being the one making the mistake and giving them all advantage. See, here we cut our engine, and we're waiting for the opponent Abrams there to make the first move and to make the mistake. And that's the primary reason why you'll cut the engine. Is one, to hear something come up on you, but secondly, when you get in a tank on tank, is to cut your engine first when you break line of sight from one another, just so that you outweight them. It may take a while and a lot of patience, but you can outweight them and they'll make the first mistake. And along with that, you'll see Squad 2 coming up, getting your friendly forces, whether that's another Bradley or if it's another main battle tank coming up to assist, because I'd always rather have a 2 versus 1 fight than a 1v1 fight. Kind of dirty like that. I'd rather send them to the morgue than send them to the hospital. So going into a little bit more detail on this clip, playing the waiting game and fast forwarding through it a little bit. Eventually Squad 2 is coming up and in on the other side, and we're confident that 2 will be able to see them momentarily. The Abrams has left his engine on. We're just thinking that we can get a little bit closer to him, and then we're thinking that he's in a hangar next to us. So we go up and around and we get looking for him. Our concern is that we need to hurry. The other Abrams hasn't been seen, identified, engaged, or destroyed at all. So this Abrams is just probably trying to sit tight and he's waiting for his backup, like we just did with Squad 2. So we decide to not waste too much more time, and we make the correct decision, and we catch this Abrams with his pants absolutely down. He's hearing Squad 2 come in, and he's more or less in a defensive posture for 2, not looking for us.
He's hurt. Squad 2 is going in between you and me. There we go. That's an ammo.
So there you have it. That's the first Abrams down. So now we start working on getting out of the actual little cap there of Yale Airfield. Just be forewarned, the trenches there are rough. I wouldn't go too far into that cap with the actual main battle tank. About as far as we went in is already dangerous enough. If you cross the trenches sometimes at the wrong point, or if you get flustered and you start backing up, you'll find yourself very easily stuck in a trench that you didn't see coming or intend. And here you're about to see another example of audio, so be quiet for a second. And there it is. There's the other Abrams. That's what we were worried about, is that he was waiting for his backup, and we ran right into him. Something to mention here is, specifically for the driver, if you end up in this really close quarters battle kind of fight with another main battle tank, don't try to drive around in circles. Just try to 0-degree turn. Throw your tank into reverse, and you'll actually spin faster in the reverse gear than you will the first forward gear. And it's all about just the gunner staying on target and keeping the front armor facing the enemy tank at all times. So in this clip, I more or less want to give an example of what an opening match would look like on Talil. So I ran the western edge of the map all the way up to a nice little rock outcropping that now everyone's unfortunately going to know about. And we're just sitting here nice and pretty. You can see that the gunner saw Logi a little bit ago. I told him not to shoot at it, even though he had confidence that he could hit it. The idea is just to stay nice and quiet and just let the enemy come wandering into your point of view. My buddy that's dismounted sees the T-72. Gunnery's trying to identify it, and I'm in the commander's seat. Even though he's just inside the side of view, my gunner didn't quite notice it. He's got it identified, and now we're just letting him wander into us.
He sees us engage.
Unfortunately, we're pretty sure that he saw us, so the gunnery opens. Gunnery tries to disable his engine with the first shot. And the second shot's a little bit of a rough bounce. When we fired 2 shots, a T-72 opens with reflex. Don't use reflex if you're in a T-72 on the front of the Abrams. It, in my experience, does nothing. I don't think I've ever been injured by the reflex from the front in an Abrams. So, open with Sabo. Now, he never got his range, and because he fired a reflex first, and he throws a Sabo way over top of us, well, we've been on target all the time, and he paid for it. Just putting that pressure on him, having the advantage, seeing him first, getting the good range, and then that gunner being inexperienced, in my opinion. From here, we notice that there's another T-72 marked on the map, and we go about our merry way with getting on and engaging him. Now, moving on from opening round engagements and opening round placement, I want to move on to a little bit more developed portion of the map engagement. Say that you've gone to your original opening position and you haven't ran into enemy armor. What it would look like to get into an actual tank engagement where you're in a 2 versus 1 scenario. Now, what can help give you an idea of where enemy tanks are is to reference the map like my gunner is here. We heard tank fire, we realized they were shooting at something, and now he saw that our BTR has just died. And we haven't heard anything on the comms about it. And there's 1 Abrams that the gunner identifies. I'm still sitting in the driver's seat. And he sees the 2nd Abrams, so he lays a little pain into both of them. Right now, the idea is to make us seem like we're more than one. We want those Abrams to be freaked out and think that both tanks are here by sharing the pain to both of them. So he's absolutely fucked up the one pretty good. He hit him in the engine. Gives him a little bit more pain.
We're gonna try to reverse this engine.
That other one is pretty sure that he's ID'd us.
Let me know when we're good.
Start backing us down into a hull down, and just in the nick of time, Abrams gets the proper, well, just misses his proper 0 on us. Now they're throwing rounds over top of us, and now just mostly our turret is showing. The other Abrams looks like it's dead. Somehow it threw a round at us without having its gun pointed at us. Now it's dead. And we're a little bit injured, so we just want to break contact on this one. Our Abrams is still mucking up his shots, but we don't want him to get any closer in his range than what he already is. He's already done a little bit of damage to us, so I just want to split. I want to see if he won't try to chase us into these woods, and I'm going to stop here and listen for a little bit. So I'm going to speed this up because nothing of real importance happens. I just pull down into this forest. We try to listen towards where the Abrams was seen last. Cut the engine. Listen for a little while. Officially, we can't determine where he's going. We hear him starting to move around out beyond our view through the trees. Can't tell where he's going. So we're a little bit injured ourselves. We start to go towards where we think that he may be going, which is, you'll hear me say here, a fob to the north that we suspect to get repaired himself. And instead, we end up running smack into him.
You know what I think, John? I think that they have a fob up on the hills in the north.
That wasn't that second tank that hit us. The other one was looking away from us, and the other one had already shot.
Right in front of us. Right in front of us.
So you'll see here that I don't stop. I just keep going full tilt right towards the Abrams. Reason being that when you're that close to one another, the likelihood of ammo racking one another is pretty good. So you might as well just do your best to panic and get the advantage over the enemy tank, regardless of how little. And in that instance, it pans out. In this other example I'm about to show, it's kind of wacky, but this is what else can happen if you just drive yourself full pace towards an enemy tank. Quick note here about audio cues. If you listen here in this clip coming up, you'll hear whistle off to the left over top of us and then the impact to the right, and that can help you find where you're shot from and IDing where you're being shot from. Listening to where the whistle starts and seeing or listening to where it lands next to you, or seeing where it lands next to you, and just kind of running that back is a good way to find out where you're being shot at from. So we figure out that the Abrams shooting at us from the left. He's gotten eyes on us first. He's put round over us and hits us once but doesn't do any damage. My gunner identifies, throws a round at him, and my immediate thought is just to get us out of contact and try to get moving as fast as possible to make it hard to be hit. I wreck into a twig while marking the map and lose my momentum. Now we're getting beat up and I'm in the low ground, so with nothing else left to lose, you might as well just charge the enemy tank.
I'm just gonna charge at him. He's
Best case scenario, you panic him and give yourself a moment to breathe, or this. Another thing to note here, one of the big advantages of closing so much distance so quickly is that it throws off the correct holdover for the opponent gunner. He's still trying to range me for a distance that I was quite a ways back just a few moments ago. So he's throwing rounds over top of me, along with being panicked that RT-72 is just getting closer. And you can see he just keeps throwing them over top of me. That's another big advantage of closing so much distance so quickly. It panics the opponent gunner and he throws rounds over top of you, getting the incorrect range. And you can hear my gunner there very concernedly telling me to back up, that if you get that close to an opponent tank, you might as well just go for it and hit them. Do the bulls locking horns. And you'll get this Battlefield-esque moment that I was referencing earlier.
I need a moment to think. I'm gonna flip him over. Shoot him. Shoot him again.
Alright, one enemy Abrams gone.
Yeah, we're killing the other one right now.
Get us out of here.
I'm trying.
Oh, now he's smoking.
Dude, I just
Alright,
totally
now that I'm done causing only in Battlefield moments in squad, I'd like to talk about ambushes a little bit, and how to try to set up ambushes with main battle tanks. See here that there's a burned out lodge on the road, and we destroyed about a minute prior to this on kind of their main MSR. They lost a lot of their equipment and a lot of their ground, and they're trying to run stuff back up. We end up engaging that striker there, and before too long, here comes their Abrams. He's just absolutely oblivious to where we are initially, and then the gunner positively IDs us. And in this whole clip, this Abrams doesn't shoot. I can't explain why, but more or less, when you're setting up an ambush into the middle and late game, you just kind of want to watch an MSR, maybe keep track of when you killed their tanks or their IFVs and when they may be coming back up. I don't support wholeheartedly camping their main, but their most likely avenue approach or their main route that they'll be coming up is just absolutely fine, as we did here.
Get reverse gear and spin.
You are dead.
GG. Now in this clip, both my recording and Turner's recording started a little bit late. See the burning Bradley there. The Bradley was leading up this convoy of the Bradley and the Abrams. We targeted the Abrams first, seeing as how it's a bigger threat to us than the Bradley. However, the Bradley positively ID'd us, and the Abrams, as you saw there, still seemed kind of lost as to where we were. The Bradley armed his tow and aimed it as Turner put a sail round right through him and one shot at him. We then turned our attention onto that Abrams, who is very, very injured, and dips out of view. We assume that he starts his way going back towards Maine based on his direction of travel, and we're in hot pursuit. We don't want him to get away and get patched back up and come back out. We'd rather just finish him off right now. Now, on a side note, well, I absolutely yeehaw cowabunga my way down this hill full tilt. If you're gonna be running a convoy, I would much rather lead with the main battle tank with the Bradley trailing behind. The Bradley obviously can be one shot by the T-72. Not saying that the Abrams can't, but the Bradley's a lot more squishy than the Abrams. And had that Bradley been following a couple hundred meters back, and we engaged the Abrams first, that Bradley could have come up and actually supported instead of just being food for our T-72. So we reported the Abrams to the other tank squad. The other tank squad comes up and ends up getting into a little bit of a scrap with the Abrams, and unfortunately we lost the friendly T-72 to that Abrams that we had previously injured. He didn't double back and go all the way back to Maine. He was still looking for us, and he found the other T-72 and probably thought it was us. So we pull up and we try to render assistance, but it's a little bit too late. We end up getting this Abrams in the end, but unfortunately lose the friendly T-72.
He's moving to our left. He's going south. He's somewhere in this field with us. Can't hear his engine. There he is. Goodbye.
So now, after giving a couple of good examples of watching some main supply routes and the way that tanks will come back up into the fight, I want to give an example of what it looks like trying to find an Abrams regularly in the fight after it's been up into the battlefield a little bit. Normally what I'll do is I'll just hang back, more likely towards the enemy's side of control of the map, in an elevated position. I'll just wait for the other tank to reveal itself and try to get in the mix to assist its infantry. And here you see that this Abrams has done exactly that. And now we have great shots on him. He dips into cover a little bit on us, but it ain't a big deal. And we'll just sit here for a little bit and we'll wait for him to expose himself again. And before too long he does, and we end up lighting him up.
You want to take this fucking blueberry from my fucking truck? I mean,
Those are friendlies.
No, they're not.
That's not friendly.
They came from the left.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. The Abrams just rocking the throw.
Roger. Roger. Continue engage. We are engaging from the hill. On a side note here, while this battle is taking place, I just want to say that I'm pretty sure that the armor values on most tanks are still kind of bugged. Even in WTF 12.1, after they said that they fixed some of the armor values. This tank here takes way too much Sabo to kill. I'm not quite sure what the issue is and why this happens, but he eventually goes down. Okay, there's his just takes a hellacious amount of firepower to actually do it. Here we go. One Abrams down. Now in this clip I just wanted to remind everyone of the ability that tanks have to knock out halves with heat. It's very effective. A lot more effective in my opinion than mortars. And just don't discount it. Great fun. And in this clip, it's just us knocking out a hab and eventually knocking out a T-72. And it pretty much concludes this portion of my tank tutorials tips video. If you've enjoyed the ride and you've made it this far, I thank you for watching. And don't forget to like and subscribe if you want more of this content. And stick around to the end for bonus content on what typically happens to me when I end up in a public tank. Needless to say, I don't roll in public tanks very often.
Look a little bit to the left. They're moving in from the east.
Oh, you killed the hab. Nice.
There's infantry.
Fire more heat at the hab. They're gonna try to rebuild it. We're fully destroying that hab now with heat.
Hey, tell me there's more foot mobiles pushing in from the east, outside the city.
Roger. Looking. No eyes.
Yeah, they're probably in by... enemy crawling around that... There's two enemies crawling around that gap where the...
Yeah. Eyes on.
Right where that fucking round just landed.
I think there's some walls or something that aren't loading in.
Hab destroyed.
Careful, friendly infantry on the roofs. T-72, far. Mark. Engage.
No eyes.
800 meters. One shot good. Fire one ready. Second shot good.
Squad.
Oh, that might be inside their main. Nope. Fire again.
Lost,
Good hit. He's going back for their main. Engage. Solid hit. Engage again. Oh, he's disappearing into the dust to me. Good hit. Dead.
Night, bitch.
So, you're probably wondering how I ended up here. Hopped into a public tank with people I didn't know. Let this be a cautionary tale.
Right now, they've had ample time to push up.
Oh, right in the front. Ah, fuck. Keep going. Ram right into this motherfucker.
Let's go, let's go.
Fucking A. Come on.
Go. That.
Let's go. Hit this motherfucker right.
Hey. Get around.
He's cooking.
Hell, yeah. One behind us now.
Eat shit, motherfucker.
One behind us.
He's dead. Alright, do we need a good RTB? ETR 80.
Hey, what's our health at, Cole?
And there you have it. If you really made it this far, I'm impressed. Thank you for watching this much. Personally, I can't sit through videos that are this long. If you really did sit through this video all the way to see this point, comment on the YouTube video and just let me know. Because I really somehow doubt that someone made it this far. And that's how you end up in this situation in a public tank crew. Thank you. Bye.